Hi, welcome back to my studio. So let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be doing this week. Now, the first thing you need to decide is whether or not you're going to do an interior view or an exterior view. 6th grade, you're going to be doing 1-point perspective. 7th grade, you're going to be doing 2-point perspective. However, there is nothing saying that a 6th grader cannot try their hand at 2-point perspective and that a 7th grader cannot incorporate 1-point perspective on one side or the other of their drawing. I will allow that for certain techniques, and I will explain which ones later. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about tips and tricks, and you can go ahead and utilize them on the different practice pieces that we've done the last few days so that you can have an idea of what you're going to do before we get into the final projects. So the final projects themselves, you're going to choose either to do an interior scene or an exterior scene. That means that you can do inside, which is things like rooms or hallways or classrooms. Now you can do different rooms entirely, but that's up to you. Now, exterior means that you have the option of doing things like oceanscapes, landscapes, cityscapes, etc. Now, you can customize these as you see fit, have fun with them, play with them, but we make sure that you are following instructions so that you are not losing points. Now, I am going to be 100% expecting to see value. That means the transition between dark and light. Where your light source is coming from will change the direction of the shadows in your drawings. Now, as I'm shifting around the light source, you can see that it's shifting around my face to show different shadows as they are. That's the same thing for if you're doing outdoor drawings. Now, the shadows and everything are important, but they don't have to be perfect for this drawing. For the first couple steps for today, and today only, you are going to be practicing and using some of the different techniques, the practice techniques that you are going to be utilizing in the final product later. You are going to make your decision on what you are going to do, and you are going to do some practice pieces using the tips and tricks that I'm going to give you today. So that being said, let's go ahead and get down to the table. Hello, welcome to my table. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cover what materials you need. Obviously, paper, ruler, pencil. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of pencil. It doesn't matter what kind of ruler. Mine's a big old fancy ruler, but you don't need a fancy ruler like this. You can just use any old ruler or even something with just a straight line. As long as it does a straight line, you're not measuring. It doesn't matter. So if you want to just use don't use a book, Mr. Maxon would be mad. Okay, if you want to use just sort of card or another piece of paper, just anything that will make a straight line will work for this type of drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 different examples using a bunch of different techniques and tricks for using the different points perspective. Now, I want you to go ahead and practice them, obviously, but it doesn't have to be 100% exact. So my dog got a hold of these papers, so they're a little bit wrinkly, but they'll do just fine. So the first thing that you're going to definitely need to know and remember before you get started on this project is how to do your shading. Now, remember, you always want to remember whatever your object is, that where your light source is, your shadows are on the opposite side, and they will always be slightly longer than your actual object. You got to have the highlight. I know you can't read it very well, but it's there. Highlight, midtone, core shadow, reflected shadow, and drop shadow, also known as the cast shadow. Now, these are things that you have to know for this project. I will be grading to see value. So when you hear me say the word value, I'm looking for this, for shading. And I want that transition between dark and light. The next thing I'm going to be looking for, whether you're doing a drawing inside or whether you're doing a drawing outdoors, I'm going to be looking for an example of some sort of plant. Now, it could be in a pot, it could be on a table, it could be a tree. If it's outside, it could be a couple of trees, it could be a cluster of trees, but I'm going to expect to see some sort of plant. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some of the final details that were covered on this particular drawing that we did using that video just a couple of days ago. Now, in this case, there's the trees. There's a cluster of trees right back here, where it's a bit of a blob, and then you just have the tree trunks, but you can't see a lot of details. Now this one, again, bit of a blob, and you shade it in. The further away something gets, the smaller it gets. This is very important in terms of getting depth. The next thing that we want to go ahead and point out before we continue onwards is the fact that the further back something gets, the less detail you're going to see. So if I were to draw something way up front up here, I would have to be drawing each individual petal of a flower, for example. Now remember, it doesn't have to be 100% realistic like this. It doesn't have to be even better. I don't expect that from you. You guys are middle school, so I expect you to just do the best that you can. So let's go ahead and get started with the first trick. So the first trick I want to go ahead and show you is the letter L. Those of you that are watching, I'm sure know what the letter L is. If you put your left hand out and you hold your fingers out like this, you will see, as far as you can, you will see the letter L right here. Now, the letter L, you want to consider, the first thing that you want to consider with your drawing is you want to know the bottom horizontal line and the side horizontal line. These are very important for creating that illusion of 3D depth. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to create a horizon line. It doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line for this one. It is just a mark for where your horizon, where your eye is going to be. The next, you need to mark out where your perspective point is going to be. Is it 1 point perspective, or is it 2 points? 1, 2. That is your choice. Now, the tricks I'm going to give you today will work on either one of these perspectives. The only difference is whether or not you are going to do this using a point that's over here, or you can doing over there. Now, even if you're doing 1 point perspective, you can have the point be on this side. It doesn't have to be exactly in the center. Now, let's go ahead and work our way through this. 1 point perspective. That letter L trick is the biggest trick and the one I want you to be practicing today. So you start with a horizontal line. You start with your point, your vanishing point. Okay? Whatever is facing you, if it's looking at you, that is the space that you're going to draw. Okay? It doesn't matter what the rest of it looks like. Okay? You're not doing the perspective just yet. Just for practice at this point, I want you to practice outdoors, an outdoor drawing for today. Okay? And the first thing I want you to do is draw the most basic of houses. Triangle, square. It's the most basic house ever, right? You can have these most complex looking images and art pieces by using very simple designs. So the first thing about 1 point perspective that you can really like, and if you're doing 2 point perspective, you can 100% use this for sections that are facing you. So for example, this is working on the corner, but 2 point perspective won't necessarily work on this section. Treat this side as 1 point perspective because it is right in front of you. So for those of you that are doing 2 point perspective, specifically my 7th graders, you're going to treat this exactly, each side should, if you have something on this side, it should be treated, the closer it is to the vanishing point, the more it should be treated as 1 point perspective. Okay? You are on one side. So if I'm over here, let's say I want to draw a dumpster. I don't know why there's a dumpster there, but whatever. Okay? You start here, just start the face, the thing that's pointing towards you. Okay? And you don't have to copy it exactly. I just wanted to give you an example. Okay? Line it up. Square it off. It doesn't have to be a dumpster. It's just a square. Okay? This side, you treat it like 1 point perspective. This side, you treat it like 1 point perspective. The only part that you treat as 2 point with the 2 point perspectives is the center area, whatever corner that you're looking at. So 1 point perspective, if you're doing outside, and you're not drawing the corner of something, you want to make sure that you start with the side that's facing you. And that can be very, very simple. In this case, the most simple of houses. Put a door there. Put a doorknob. It doesn't have to be at 100% perfect. Now, if you want it to look better, you want to make sure that you're using the letter L. So here's my little trick for you. Okay, and I'm going to show you again in just a minute. You're going to go ahead and connect, just like with the 2-point perspective, all the corners. 1 dot for the corner, 1 dot on your corner, 1 dot on your corner, okay? 1 dot on the corner. Put a dot on each corner. Now, if the line is going to go through something, don't draw it, okay? Or you could draw it very softly. I'm going to draw it softly first so you can see. So I'm going to connect the line to the dot. Connect the corner to the dots, corner to the dot, and corner through to the dot. And I'm even going to connect the rest of these just so you can see. Now, the thing is, in this case, all of these lines are going through my house. You're not going to see those. It's going through the house. They're inside the house. They don't matter. Those don't matter because they're going inside the house. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the little letter L right at the base, wherever I want the back of my house to be. Okay, straight line up and down. And then we're going to do a parallel line right here. We're going to talk about parallel lines tomorrow in class. But a parallel line basically just means 2 lines that are going the same direction. Okay, so you want to keep them going the same direction. It doesn't have to be 100% exact. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you can erase. Don't be afraid of erasing your lines. Don't be afraid of not having something be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect when you're practicing. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect at all because perfect does not exist for art. Now, once you have a general idea of what you want, you can go ahead and clean up your lines. Make sure that your lines are a little more parallel. So let's say, for example, my lines right there weren't quite right. So I'm going to go ahead and clean those lines. One way to do that, make your line bigger. Okay? You can add more details later. Next thing, let's talk roads real quick. 1-point perspective makes the best roads. Ready? 1 line, 2 lines, 1 dot in the middle made of a dash line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Make your lines bigger as they get closer to you. Smaller as they get further away. Now you have a road. You can add a sidewalk. Closer, like that. So let's say you want to break this up into a little bit better sidewalk. Okay, at this point, you can just add horizontal lines. Make sure these lines are straight. So let's go ahead and add something on this side. I'm going to go very quickly. I'm going to make 2 lines. And I'm going to show you how to do a combination of trees and street lights. We're going to go very quickly, okay? So please pay attention. So at this point, I'm going to draw on this corner. I'm going to go straight up and do my letter L. Or actually, I'm going to do an upside down T. So I decided I'm going to make my instead of a street light for this sun, I'm going to go ahead and do a tree. So I do upside down T, curve it in, make sure to leave a little bit of space in the middle, and then you can add your leaves, however you decide to add your leaves. This one's going to be a conifer like a Christmas tree. So in this case, start wide, make some squiggles, start wide, make some squiggles, start wide, make some squiggles. Tree. And you can make one side darker. Now it looks fancy. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. You are just practicing. Okay. So if you fill in one side of that upside down T, now you have the shade, most of the shading done on your tree. So let's say now we have a tree. We've decided that this is the tree. This is the starting tree. That's where I'm going to go. So I line it up with the top of the tree, to the point. So now I know if I want to make street lights that are the same height as the tree, I'm going to put the letter L right there. Straight line up from the top of the L. So tiny L, straight line up, out, over, street light. It's literally just a line, and you can just make the line a little bit thicker all the way to the end of the L, and now you've got a street light. You can shape it however you want. It's a street light. Okay, so let's say I have a tree in the back. Upside down T, straight up, blob at the bottom. Let's say I want to make this one closer to what happened on the other one. A little bit darker here. Maybe I want to see a little bit of tree trunk. So you don't want to go too much higher than that line. Further back, street lights. Further back, tree. Blob on a stick. Okay, these are what I want you to be practicing today. You're going to be going a little bit, I'm going to go a little bit more in detail on how to add things like windows and such of that nature tomorrow. With that being said, you have a great day.